Why do I find myself here, attempting the seemingly impossible task of running for President of the United States of America? Me, President. What a joke. The question isn't why am I running for president? The question is why isn't everyone else? I think I know one reason. It's embarrassment. It will embarrass me for the rest of my life. My friends and family are going to have a field day with this one. Hey, remember that time you tried to run for president? Out of your car! You actually thought you were going to become president. Delusions of grandeur much, Thaddeus? Yeah, it's a joke, but it's a joke that I am quite serious about. Because I am desperate, and as I know many of you are, and I simply don't know what else to do. I do know what I'm up against, but I'm going to do it anyways. If you're anything like me, I think you know why. Donald Trump represents the end of the great American experiment. He must be stopped at all costs. So why me? Why not me? Anyone and everyone could do what I'm doing. If you want to be the one to spearhead the attack on Trump and Trumpism, be my guest. Then I might be supporting you. Probably in a better position anyways. It would be hard to be in a worse position than I, running a presidential campaign out of my car. But the bottom line remains someone needs to stand up to Donald Trump, and I don't see anyone really doing it. The Democrats had their opportunity and proved themselves incapable, just as the Republicans were unable to stop him from infecting and taking over their once honorable party. He may have defeated the Democrats, he may have destroyed the GOP, but we cannot let him destroy the United States of America, not without a far more strenuous fight. Now, I'm not saying that Donald Trump will destroy America as a country or a nation. I am saying that Trump will destroy America as a principle, as a core set of beliefs, a philosophy, an ideal to strive for, an objective that has existed since this nation's founding. A belief that people can govern themselves. The American Revolution transferred power not from one ruler or ruling class to another, but gave the power of governance to the people. A system of government that hasn't been tried on this scale for millennia. Rule of the people, a democracy. Or to be more precise, a constitutional republic, if we can keep it. This revolution not only changed one country, but in time changed the world. The idea that people could and should rule themselves spread outside our borders, and America became the ideal that people living under monarchies and empires looked to and envied. But it has never been easy. From the Whiskey Rebellion to the Civil War, the fragility of such a government has been tested. And now it is our time, our crisis. And we are on the verge of losing it again. How? Donald Trump has already tried to violate the most sacred principle of these United States 3 different times in 3 different ways. On January 6th, on the Raffensperger call, and on the fake elector scheme. Each effort was criminal, and each effort was an attempt to deny the people of their single most valuable right that the American experiment has given them, the ability to elect your governing representatives. Each effort was an attempt to undermine the founding principle of these United States. You can't get much more treasonous than that. Donald doesn't want to be a president. He wants to be a king, an emperor, a Führer, a dictator, a sovereign ruler, and we, the people, are the ruled, whether we like it or not. If you don't believe me in the severity of this situation, then why didn't Donald simply respect the 2020 election results? Why didn't he respect the will of the people? 3 different times in 3 different ways. If someone is caught with their hand in the proverbial cookie jar in 3 different times, it is safe to say that they are trying to steal a cookie. And it is safe to say that Donald Trump doesn't want the people to elect their leaders. He wants to determine electoral outcomes for himself, and he is willing to commit serious crimes to do so. And so it is also safe to say that Trump does not believe in the most central tenet of the philosophical foundation of the nation. The American experiment posed the question to the world: can a nation's people govern themselves? Can a nation's people be self-determining? Can a nation's people rise to the historic challenge of maintaining a democratic republic? And for almost 250 years, America has been able to answer yes, clearly. But once again, we are at a crossroads. For the first time in our nation's history, a president has illegally tried to change election results, and when that failed, he denied the results altogether. The answer Trump gives to the question posed by the Great American Experiment is a resounding no. No, the people cannot decide their representation. No, they must be told. Told by the very government they thought they freely elected. Told by the very government that was supposed to be answerable to the people, not deciding their election results for them. Donald has shown that if the election results themselves cannot be altered, as the Raffensperger call bears witness to, then the results themselves must be denied, as the Big Lie bears witness to. The strategy is simple: cheat to win, and if that fails, claim your opponent cheated better than you did. Interestingly, this means that an honest election simply cannot exist in Trump world. He will deny his own cheating, even if incontrovertible evidence is presented, while simultaneously accusing his opponent of cheating, even if no evidence is presented at all. Keep in mind that this is a man who claimed that the elections of 2016, 2020, 2024, including various primary contests, were all rigged against him. He even claimed that the results of the television award show, the Emmys, were rigged against him. I kid you not. The Emmys. This infantile inability to accept election results, although amusing and ridiculous, simply cannot be tolerated, lest our elections become brazen attempts at cheating to win and shameless crying foul when you lose. This precedent cannot stand. It is not sustainable. We must be able to hold out hope that free and fair elections are at least possible. In a republic such as ours, elections are the only conduit by which the people hold any power in government. And for 250 years, we have been able to preserve our faith in the integrity of our election process. We have been able to pass the torch of liberty to each new generation, that our elections, although imperfect, are generally representative of the will of the nation. The president is chosen by the people. What are we supposed to tell our children now? The president is decided by whoever cheats the most or accuses his opponents of cheating the most. In the era of Trump, faith in elections is simply no longer possible. He will cheat or blame cheating, regardless of outcome, regardless of evidence. Moreover, if we allow a crook who has tried to rig elections again and again another chance, then we are the fools. Sooner or later, a call to the Secretary of State of Georgia, a fake elector scheme, or a January 6th insurrection will succeed in their intentions. Sooner or later, the guy who was caught with his hand in the cookie jar is going to make off with a cookie. Now, we wouldn't be the first country to allow our national elections to become corrupted. It happens all over the world. But we will be the first generation of Americans to let it happen here. That is something I cannot accept as long as I draw breath. I will never forgive Donald for his betrayal of America's most primary mission. If you're anything like me, you won't either. You can't. Trump is a traitor, and I will treat him as such. That I promise. I will never validate him by attending his inauguration or capitulate to him in any other way. Until he is in a jail cell, his crimes will never be forgotten or ignored by me, despite the Supreme Court's attempts to overlook Trump's ascension above the law and grant him unconstitutional, unlimited immunity. If the president is above the law, the judicial branch is subservient to the executive branch. This is not our founders' vision. But who really sickened me is the horde of MAGA Trump worshippers. These people have no understanding of the principles this country was founded on. They don't want a president. They want a ruler who is all-powerful and unquestioned. They want a Caesar, a Napoleon, an Alexander, a Hitler, a Mussolini, precisely what the Founding Fathers were afraid of and precisely what the United States Constitution was designed to prevent. Democracy, in the way the founders intended, is too hard for them. Checks and balances is just another name for a deep state. The free press is not some indispensable factor in a free and open society. The free press is just another obstacle for the great leader to overcome. Trump's followers do have a certain logic behind this submission, as do all supporters of these strongmen-type rulers throughout history. They believe that if they make the leader stronger, they make the nation stronger, for they are one and the same. Equally in error, they believe to weaken the leader is to weaken the nation. But this is not what the Founding Fathers believed. The founders bent over backwards to restrain the powers of the federal government, including, perhaps most of all, the powers of the president. But since Trump's followers cannot distinguish between Trump and the government, they see his strength as the nation's strength and submit to him completely, turning off all criticisms, no matter how severe or glaring they may be. Incredibly, they believe that this is patriotism. And to criticize Trump or to keep his power in check is seen as treason. The leader's authority needs to be absolute, his power total. That is what a political strongman is. And Trump has proven he is willing to assume the role. His followers have proven that they are willing, uneducated, ignorant, or just plain stupid enough to not understand that this is everything the Founding Fathers were worried about. Not just one party rule, one person rule. Mussolini famously said, "The truth is that people are tired of liberty. Nowhere is that more evident than in the MAGA world today." And I don't mean tired as in bored with. I mean tired as just exhausted. Democracy is hard. Strongmen are easy. After all, who has the time and energy to deliberate among many candidates, fact-check them, research their positions, their voting records, etc.? And that is before you listen to the different media outlets and try to cross-reference the stories to figure out which are rumor and which are biased and so on and so on. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just bypass all that doubt and deliberation and just have a strong leader who unquestionably has the nation's best interest at heart and unquestionably has the ability to accomplish these objectives and unquestionably the sole leader with this ability and will unquestionably do so if he is just given the chance. These people want someone to tell them that he and he alone will make everything great again. Donald does this for them in abundance. He doesn't give examples. He doesn't give strategies. He doesn't give specifics. His followers wouldn't want to hear them even if he did. They don't want to hear the plan. They don't want to hear concepts of a plan. They just want to hear that sweet lie that one man will solve all the problems in the nation, not through any well-described doctrine or policy or political consensus or diplomatic back and forth, but by sheer will and shameless self-promotion of his own self-evident superiority. Doubt and dissent is squashed with vigorous accusations of anti-patriotism. After all, what is more patriotic than wanting your country to be great, and what is more treasonous than to nitpick what that actually means? Criticism is just standing in the way. But free criticism of our leaders is what made this country great. But these people, they want to be told what to do. They prefer the sweet lies over the hard truths. Truths that may lead them to question their faith in Donald Trump as misguided. And they can't have that. The simple solution of Donald solving all of America's problems by virtue of circular reason, untapped greatness, has already been committed to. It would be futile to re-examine it now. All we can do now is eliminate the obstacles that stand in the way between Trump and his plan to make America great. The media needs to be silenced. His critics need to be sidelined. His crimes need to be forgiven. Then, and only then, can Trump's true plan blossom into fruition. In other words, remove the restraints democracy places on the despot, and the despot promises to deliver glory to the nation. This is an old story. Free me so I can do my plan. I require absolute power to complete my plan. Remove these safeguards that are shackling me, and I'll show you my plan. But what these idiots never understand is that is the plan. Do you think that after Trump silences the media, after every critic has been turned into a fawning sycophant, after he manages to have himself granted immunity from the law, after he grants himself a third term via the same criminal attempts he has already committed, you think then he will unfurl some secret 7-point plan to bestow greatness onto America? Why? Plan is already complete. Trump has total control. Power was the plan, nothing more. My dear fellow Americans, I implore you to recognize that Trump and Trumpism is not what the founders wanted America to be. In fact, Trump is everything they were afraid of America becoming. A nation in which the head of state is beholden to nobody but himself and has no obligations other than his own pursuit and preservation of power. He doesn't serve the state, he doesn't serve the party, he doesn't serve the people, he just serves himself. If this isn't abundantly clear by now, it never will be. Power was the plan all along. Remember, this is a man who tried to change election results to directly thwart the will of the people. It is clear where his loyalties lie. It is not with the U.S. Constitution, and it is not with the people of the United States. But do not mistake Trump for some unique historical oddity. Please hear me when I say to you that Donald Trump poses a threat to democracy that is as old and ancient as democracy itself. Go back less than a century and look how quickly fascism upended the rule of the people to replace it with the rule of the one. How quickly the republics of Italy and Germany turned to fascism. Go back another century and half from there and witness how the founding fathers grappled with the forming of a new government, writing in checks and balances and separation of powers in the hopes that they may forestall a president too hungry for power. Not long after that, the world watched as Napoleon usurped the ideals of the French Revolution. Go back a couple of millennia from there, and you will see why the founders were so cautious. Surprisingly, the ancient Greeks, the civilization that birthed democracy in the first place, were disdainful of rule of the common people. Socrates and Plato derided democracy as being inherently weak. A fragile system made of many leaders will make the people uneasy, and they will seek the comforting stability of one. Even if the strength of the single leader is illusory, democracies, the ancient Greeks concluded, inevitably and ironically lead to tyranny. They had seen enough of democracy and felt it to be too unstable to weather the demands of history. And maybe they were right. You don't need to appeal to ancient examples of democracy to see they did have a point. Even in my own lifetime, I watched the Soviet Union crumble to be replaced briefly by a hopeful, relatively open democracy, with Mikhail Gorbachev and Boris Yeltsin, only to watch those hopes quickly dashed under the dictatorship of Putin. How many times have we seen a banana republic in South America or a Cold War post-colonial country in Africa have a revolution to begin anew with the brightest intentions of freedom and democracy, only to quickly become the fiefdom of Generalissimo so-and-so? I'll say it again. Democracy is hard. Strongmen are easy. When we fight for America, we fight for a philosophy. We fight not just to maintain America's superpower status, but to maintain the ideals of the American Revolution. That through the course of human events, we may preserve a system of government that protects the inalienable rights and liberties of the citizenry and derives its just power from the consent of the governed. Donald Trump does not seek the consent of the governed. And if he were to have his way, regardless of America's standing in the world, the ideals of this nation truly will perish from the earth. Maybe the ancient Greeks were right. Maybe rule of the people is just too fragile a system. Perhaps we need a strong leader more than we need individual freedoms. Did the Founding Fathers have it wrong? Were they too naive to think that they could heroically revive this ancient idealistic belief of rule of the people to rival the more stable and far more long-lasting monarchies of the day? And maybe those same monarchies were right to scoff at the fledgling United States for its optimistic view of a people governing themselves, choosing their leaders through elections rather than have it simply determined by birthright. Maybe they were right. Maybe all democracies are doomed to devolve into demagoguery. Maybe elections are too unreliable to determine the will of the people and will eventually simply award the greatest cheater, as it is done so often throughout the world. Maybe it was just a matter of time. Maybe we should content ourselves that it lasted this long. 2.5 centuries is a good run for any constitution, let alone a republic. But maybe our time has come. Maybe history has proven once again those ancient Greek skeptics right. Maybe a strong man is just the natural consequence of a people who have grown tired of liberty. Perhaps that is the final irony. Democracies fail historically not because of the indomitable will of the strong man, but because of the weary resignation of the common man. Those who would rather submit to a single ruler, even if he is a cheat, even if he is a criminal, than to commit to the work and the responsibility of ruling themselves. Perhaps it was inevitable. Perhaps our time has come. But I cannot believe that. I cannot accept that America is ready to give up the ghost. The spirit of America is at stake, and I will not let it go quietly into the history books without a fight. Not for Trump, not for anyone. I cannot promise that I will defeat Trump and Trumpism, but I promise I will die trying. This is no longer about Democrats and Republicans. This is no longer about left or right, liberal or conservative, red team or blue team. This is about whether or not Donald J. Trump should be allowed to commit treasonous crimes against these United States and continue to act as the President of the United States. This is about whether or not the people of the United States of America will honor the ideals this country was founded on, or will we follow in the footsteps of every other failed democracy. You can be a dedicated American and you can be a dedicated Trumper, but you cannot be both. My name is Thaddeus Roberts, and I'm running for President of the United States in the desperate hope that the United States can, once again, defy historical odds and remain true to the fragile, elusive ideals of our forefathers. Thank you for listening. They didn't go off.